Hi, I'm Dr. Marcia Sirota. Today I want to talk about the word Schadenfreude. Schadenfreude can be defined as taking pleasure in someone else's misfortune, especially when this person happens to be someone rich or famous and they've come falling down off of their pedestal. For example, everyone's eyes are now glued to the Amber Heard Johnny Depp trial. And I think a lot of people are taking some great pleasure in seeing the come down of one or both of these individuals because both of them are very attractive, they're well-to-do, they're famous. So let's look at Schadenfreude and why people like to have this experience. So some of us feel insecure within ourselves. We feel that our lives aren't the way we'd like them to be. We feel a sense of emptiness or a lack of meaning or purpose or a lack of accomplishment when we look back at our goals that maybe we either didn't have or never got to fulfill. Maybe we had dreams that we never were able to follow through on or come to fruition. Maybe we just never tried. But, where we are in our life is not satisfying to us. We're not happy. And so we have this sense of resentment, perhaps, or anger or irritability about the way things have turned out in our own lives. And then we look at other people whose lives are going well, at least on the surface. There are people who appear to be well-to-do. They appear to be successful, they appear to be happy and fulfilled. And then when something happens to them and they're in court and all of their very deep, intimate, personal information is being dragged through the mud for everyone to see, some of us can take pleasure in this. Now, not everyone, of course, because not everybody indulges in Schadenfreude. Some people are very upset or unhappy about the fact that Mr. Depp and Ms. Heard, all their very intimate details are being exposed for everyone to see. I personally think that's very unfortunate, and I am very uncomfortable with hearing all these details because I think that they should be private. And even though Mr. Depp is supposedly trying to clear his name, and even though Ms. Heard is supposedly trying to make her case, still I find it very uncomfortable that so much extremely intimate information is being put into the public domain for everyone to hear about. I think, it's unfortunate because I think private things should remain private and we should all be entitled to our privacy. We should all be entitled to have some things about ourselves not be in the public domain, even if we're famous. So, not everyone is, of course, interested in Schadenfreude, but for those who are, I think it's because of their own unhappiness with their own lives. It's because they feel a sense of emptiness and resentment. And so when somebody else who's doing apparently well has a come down or has all their private details put out for everyone to see, and it's embarrassing, perhaps even humiliating to them, I think then some people can indulge in this Schadenfreude and take pleasure in what they perceive as these other people's new misfortune, the coming down of somebody. So we have to be very aware of our own tendencies to engage in Schadenfreude. And so for anyone who is looking at the trial and going, see, serves them right, they deserved it, see, just because they're famous doesn't mean they can't get into trouble, I think we need to examine what might make us feel that way. If we are having any kind of happiness or glee or satisfaction in the misfortune of Mr. Depp and Ms. Heard, then we need to look within ourselves at what part of our life is unsatisfying, unfulfilling, where we lack meaning and purpose, where we have resentment or anger. And instead of taking pleasure in the misfortune of those who are having trouble in the public eye, perhaps we need to look at our own lives and see where we can bring more meaning and purpose and fulfillment into our own lives, so that instead of taking pleasure in someone else's misfortune, we can take pleasure in our own accomplishments, our own relationships, our own successes, and our own happiness. I think it's much more meaningful and fulfilling to pursue happiness directly than to have happiness by looking at someone else being unhappy. I think it's much easier to be happy if we are actually directly happy by something in our own lives, like our own happiness through family, through accomplishments, through meaning and fulfillment, rather than taking pleasure in someone else's misfortune. Pleasure is a very fleeting experience, and happiness is much more meaningful and lasting. So if we take pleasure in someone else's misfortune, it's not going to be very fulfilling. But if we make our lives happy by pursuing things that are going to give us a deep sense of fulfillment, then that's going to be much more lasting and meaningful and satisfying. So I think for everyone who might be taking pleasure in Mr. Depp or Ms. Heard's misfortune right now, because all their very intimate details are being, splayed across the media, perhaps it's a good time to reflect upon, why you might be taking pleasure in this. And if so, look at what's lacking in your own life so that you can rectify that. I'm Dr. Marcia Sirota, and today I've been talking about Schadenfreude, and I'll be back talking about more topics in mental health and wellness soon.